Investigators say the man in jail for the workplace attack sought a relationship with his coworker, but she turned him away.
Violence in the workplace. We crunched the numbers and the statistics may surprise you.
Someone is watching, following you, trying to figure out when you get to work. It's a scary situation, terrifying.
The suspect, Travis Merrill, was obsessed with the victim, Tamharra Collazo.
This is that man's shirts. I have a killer's shirts.
Collazo was intentionally avoiding him. Police say that fueled his anger, making a detailed plan to kill Collazo. 24 co-workers witnessed the shooting.
In November 2022, a beautiful woman named Tamharra Collazo moved into a new job as an accounts receivable specialist with Allegiance Trucking in Denton County, Texas. It was meant to be the next step in her upward trajectory in her life goals, but when she unwillingly became the muse for a co-worker, that trajectory plummeted to a sick and twisted end.
I was in my office and I watched a bunch of our CID officers go running out saying there's an active shooter.
That co-worker went by the name Travis Merrill. At first, it was nothing more than a friendship as fellow employees, but the lines began getting blurred over the next few months that passed. Travis was slowly falling, and as his heart would have it, falling fast. According to her other co-workers, Tamharra was funny with a contagious smile and had a courageous heart that just wanted to erase the lines and categories and just share love and hope with all who crossed her path. Not to mention, Tamharra was a bodybuilding enthusiast who can be seen here in 2017 at an NPC bikini competition in Dallas, Texas. Travis was swooned by everything about her, to the point where he wanted to be more than simply co-workers. His infatuation for her grew into an obsession. He spent his days at work wanting her to give him all her attention. It was as if Travis felt Tamharra was obligated to reciprocate what he was feeling within his chest. This was no longer innocent emotion, and management's negligence would lead to Tamharra coming face to face with a crazed misogynist. He began tracing her every move, stalking what she did, when she did it, and his obsession escalated so far that Travis had a detailed timeline of every time she went on break and lunch at work, and even creepier, he documented everywhere that she went. Tamharra became the subject of his fixation.
It's easy to happen. I recently talked to someone and they said, look, Isaiah, we spend more time at work than we do at home with family members and significant others. And you can get those attachments without even knowing it.
Correct. But I think it's important to recognize the difference between the attachment and the obsession. And so what he had was an obsession, probably also lined with misogyny, right? Because it's this notion that she owes him something, she owes him attention.
Sure enough, his actions wouldn't remain hidden for long. After months of him stalking her, Tamharra caught wind of his constant pursuit.
These guys that are doing the stalking, they use a lot of fear. They'll use non-communication, non-verbal communication.
Yes.
In this particular case, in what he was doing, just monitoring her lunchtime.
It's a scary situation to go through for an individual. If you know someone is watching the clock on you, and then they're following you, or they're trying to figure out when you get to work, it's a scary situation, terrifying.
Growing increasingly uncomfortable by his behavior, she confronted him, asking him to refrain from stalking her, but he continued with his obsession. So she reported him to HR, hoping her superiors would prioritize her safety.
Investigators say the man in jail for the workplace attack sought a relationship with his coworker, but she turned him away.
Disturbed by what they were hearing, HR called Travis into their office, and that's when it became known the woman he fixated upon reported him. To Travis, that was like a betrayal that got the evil gears in his head turning. They didn't know it at that time, but in that moment, HR had Tamharra's life within their hands, for their next decision would either save her future or bring it to a gruesome end. In an interview with Constable Nabil Shaikh, according to his experience, Allegiance Trucks should have released Travis from his employment at the company to guarantee the protection of Tamharra, but instead they did the complete opposite. The decision of management was to allow Travis back to work after he spoke with a counselor, not even in person, but over the phone.
Constable, what she did is what she should have done. She went to HR, reported him to her manager. They did counseling with him and then brought him back. Could they have done any more on the job from your perspective with law enforcement?
You know, it's kind of tough to see without seeing exactly what they did on the counseling side. But once you identify that there is some kind of harassment going on in the workplace, they should have never brought him back to the workplace in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
And getting law enforcement involved, I mean, what is stalking? Stalking is patterns. So if other coworkers and she's outcrying and saying, hey, there's patterns that are occurring, then you should get law enforcement involved.
Word spreads fast, so by now the office was aware of why he was missing from work. Tamharra naturally avoided Travis with his return for fear of her safety. In Travis's mind, paranoia began taking over. He believed everyone was looking at him as a psychopath, and instead of pointing the finger at himself for his invasion of privacy and creepy behavior, he blamed Tamharra for everything that was happening to him. His obsession was transformed into hate, and that hate became murderous. Before, his actions were fueled by his exaggerated attraction to Tamharra, but now he followed her every move for an entirely different purpose, one that would traumatize the entire workforce. He grew increasingly angry with every break she took, but the underlying thorn in his side was because, to him, those long breaks prevented her from paying attention to him. According to his later statements to police, Tamharra had caused him pain, so he wanted her to feel the same despair. That's when he devised his plan. If he couldn't have her, nobody will. Travis purchased a Smith & Wesson revolver and a Taurus protector poly that would become the accessories to channel his rage.
The affidavit says Merrill admitted to police he was obsessed with Collazo and began getting ever increasingly angry by her taking what he considered to be unauthorized long breaks during work hours, as well as not paying any attention to him. He told police that once he returned, everyone must think he's a psychopath, and that Collazo was intentionally avoiding him. Police say that fueled his anger and led to him buying guns and making a detailed plan to kill Collazo.
At home, Travis began practicing how he would murder Tamharra in front of their co-workers, everything from how he'd hold the firearm to pulling the trigger. Finally, Travis decided it was time. Weeks before October 2024, on his day off, he loaded the weapons into his vehicle and parked outside of Allegiance Trucks with all intention to murder Tamharra. But he changed his mind. On October 16th, Travis again left home to carry out the public execution. Parked and lurking, he watched as Tamharra exited the building and walked to her vehicle. Travis's eyes made contact with her location, then switched to gazing at his revolver. His impulses shouted murder, but for some reason, just as before, Travis didn't feel like it was the right time.
He admitted to bringing guns to work on multiple occasions, waiting for the right time to shoot Collazo.
Tamharra had lived to see another day, but that silver lining was about to be tainted with blood. The following day, on October 17th, Travis came to work with malice in his heart. Seconds, minutes, hours passed. Then, the moment he was waiting on. He followed Tamharra to the parking lot during her lunch break, sat in his vehicle, and readied his firearms. After her break was finished, she made her way back into the office. Behind her was Travis with his firearms hidden from plain sight. Every step felt like the ticks before a bomb says its last goodbyes before exploding. Tamharra walked to her cubicle, exactly where Travis wanted her. As she enters, he appears behind in an ambush with firearms brandished. Travis pulls the trigger 5 times, hitting Tamharra twice in her arms, twice in her chest, and once in her leg, while 24 co-workers witnessed the horror unfolding. Travis places his guns on the floor and falls to his knees with his hands over his head, while Tamharra slumps beneath her desk, gasping as blood oozes from her wounds.
Police say he brought 2 revolvers and shot Collazo 5 times while she was at her cubicle. 24 co-workers witnessed the shooting.
What's crazier in this brazen attack is that Allegiance Truck shares a parking lot with the Louisville Police Department's temporary headquarters. So officers who were a stone throw away arrived within minutes to find Travis still in a surrender position. When asked if he was the shooter, he nonchalantly exclaimed, "Yes."
Louisville police officer Rachel Roberts recalls hearing of the shooting just after 11:30 in the morning.
I was in my office and I watched a bunch of our CID officers go running out saying there's an active shooter at 1825 Lakeway.
That address sounded closely familiar.
And I quickly realized that is directly behind me in my office.
The department shares a parking lot with Allegiance trucks. Police arrived on scene within minutes and say the suspect was inside giving himself up.
He was already on his knees with his hands in the air with no weapon showing.
Police say they recovered a gun.
As he was subdued and taken away in cuffs, medical personnel rushed to Tamharra's aid to attempt to save her life. Sirens blasted as she was loaded behind an ambulance and rushed to the Medical City Louisville Hospital, where she succumbed to her injuries. Travis, with no remorse in his tone, told officers every detail of his plan and why he sought to take the life of an innocent woman. There's an old saying that when the fox can't get the grapes, it calls it sour. Travis couldn't make Tamharra his, so instead he created delusions about her to justify taking her life. He's now being held in the Denton County Jail on a murder charge, where his bond is set at $10 million. It appeared Travis had deep-seated issues, because it wasn't the first time his behavior was borderline obsessive. One neighbor told reporters she became cautious of him when he began asking her personal questions, while another neighbor said he always had a bad feeling about him.
Adriana Solis and her 13-year-old son lived next door to Merrill. Solis says he would ask her personal questions, leading her to be cautious of him.
I was thinking maybe that guy have some problem mentally.
Darcy White says he never had a good feeling about his Louisville neighbor, 51-year-old Travis Merrill.
I kind of felt something strange about him.
White says on Sunday, a relative of Merrill's was moving and giving away belongings from Merrill's apartment.
He gave me these shirts. He said son had to go out of town.
It was not until Fox 4 told White on Monday, however, the reason Merrill is no longer his neighbor is because Merrill is charged with murder.
And so this is that man's shirts. I have a killer's shirts.
Workplace violence has been on the rise, but is often swept under the rug. Maybe because of big companies trying to cover up occupational deaths to protect their image. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, acts of violence are the 3rd leading cause of deadly work injuries in the U.S. In a study analyzing fatal injuries due to homicides in the workplace in 2022, it shows an increase in murders. But what's more telling is that of the 524 workplace fatalities due to homicides in 2022, gunshot wounds accounted for 435, which is 83% of the total. Allegiance Trucks later released a statement saying that their Louisville office was closed indefinitely, while also speaking on the tragedy.
A lot of people don't understand how much stalking actually goes around in the United States. Approximately, I think it's about 3.4 million people are victims of stalking from the age of 16 on plus. And here in the state of Texas, it is a third-degree felony and punishable by up to 10 years in prison.
I can only hope this documentary on the tragic loss of Tamharra Collazo brings awareness to the ongoing issue, and more is done to protect employees. May her and all the innocent lives lost trying to earn an honest living rest in peace. For more true crime documentaries, check out one of the videos on the screen. This has been an episode of Mysteries, where true stories from around the world come to life. What stories come next? Like, share, comment, and subscribe to never miss what intriguing chronicles will be told.